Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Fama Abid and thank you for joining us. Tonight we take a look back at stories from our politics team, from dealing with foster care shortages to one neighborhood's issue with the new freeway.
School and law enforcement officials gathered in Phoenix today to talk about the growing concerns of violence on school campuses. On the last day of this summit, there was a lot of talk about how to ease the concerns about safety in schools. Dozens of officials from across the country gathered for the last day of the School Safety, Security, and Trauma-Informed Practices National Summit at Grand Canyon University. Among them, Maricopa County Sheriff Paul Penzone, who spoke about the growing concerns of students feeling unsafe at school.
Now suddenly we're faced with this threat of safety, that no student should ever have to go to class wondering if they'll go home that day.
Penzone was joined by the police chief at GCU, who explained that for college students, mental health is connected with violence on campuses. According to the Center for Homeland Defense and Security, there were close to 250 shooting incidents at schools last year. Sheriff Penzone said this is something that is now becoming all too common.
It was once, taboo that our churches and our schools and other places didn't seem like an area that should ever be targeted by someone for violence, suddenly have become primary targets.
Also on the conference agenda, conversations about threat mitigation, analysis of school shootings, and what school safety means to students. Penzone mentioned the idea that teachers should defend their students at school, but push back and said school resource officers are better trained for those situations. The keynote address today was given by the father of one of the Parkland school shooting victims, who is now an advocate for safer schools. Education in Arizona is affected by teacher shortages. A new report says hundreds of teaching positions are available and need to be filled. Cronkite News reporter Valeria Rodriguez explains what's causing the problem and what's being done to solve it.
As more teachers are needed, schools are getting creative in how they find good candidates, how they can help those be interested in teaching but don't have a state certification yet. As of January, there are more than 1,900 teacher vacancies, according to the Arizona School Personnel Administrators Association.
It's definitely made it harder on educators to have to, deal with a lesser workforce.
Diaz from the Arizona Autism Charter School says they have used innovative ways to find retainable teachers.
We have gotten very creative to get the teachers that we need for our students. We recruit from out of state and even out of the country. In some instances, we have sponsored teacher visas to get math and science teachers to our school.
Teachers and education officials say they see more teachers calling in sick because of COVID.
Teacher absences more than doubled. I think it was 220% increase compared to the January in the previous 2 years.
The ASPA also reported more than 1,600 teachers that severed employment as of January 2022, and over 70% separated employment and held a standard teacher certificate. Diaz and our team are prioritizing having committed and dedicated teachers in their classrooms.
We are engaging and applying for a teacher self-certification program where we can take teachers who have a great skill set and have a bachelor's degree, and we can certify them through our own training at our own school, because the training that we give them is very specific and very specialized. So it's really wonderful to address the teacher shortage by training our own teachers.
According to the report, over 3,000 teacher positions have already been filled by alternative methods. In the studio, Valeria Rodriguez, Cronkite News.
The Phoenix Police Department recently donated 2 retired police robots to Arizona State University's School of Engineering. Cronkite News reporter Nick Shesky spoke with some members of the school about what these 2 robots could add to students' education.
Previously, the robots were used to go into potentially hazardous situations, to defuse bombs and find other dangerous devices. Now, these mechanical workhorses are finding a second career, teaching, or more specifically, using their insides for science. A big problem with studying robotics is that complex robots are hard to get your hands on.
Oftentimes, the robotic systems that students have access to are relatively low-cost and simpler robots.
The small robots that students work on in the classrooms are a good starting point. But many of them are nowhere near as complex as these 2 bomb-detecting robots who come from the real world.
In research labs and in the classroom, when we build different types of robots, probably reliability is not really the the most important character we want on top of the list. But here, if you're really using these bomb detection and bomb removal robots in real world, reliability is probably the top priority.
These robots here give students at Arizona State University valuable hands-on experience with dealing with robotics. So it's safe to say, while these robots no longer serve their designed purpose, their purpose now lies within their design. The systems in these robots are very sophisticated. ASU engineering students with many focuses, mechanical, electrical, computer science, or even artificial intelligence, will be able to tear apart and modify these robots to understand all of the interdisciplinary work from many fields that it takes to build just one robot.
My club actually had a SWAT robot, a bomb disarming robot, and we played around with it, gutted it, redid the insides, and it was very helpful.
Even though the robots are not being studied right now, Wenlong Zhang is certain these robots will have a long future of educating students at the university.
The robots may not even look similar to what they look like right now, down the road, 5 years, 10 years. And I think more importantly, the impact of these robots will be long-lasting just because it basically just bridges the gap for our students from their classroom to the real world.
The robots are currently awaiting a decision on their future. They could be used in a professor's lab for research, or perhaps given to a student club or organization to give undergraduate engineering students hands-on experience. In the studio, Nick Shesky, Cronkite News.
The conflict in Ukraine is impacting people all over the world. Cronkite News reporter Mitchell Zimmerman is out at the Ukrainian Cultural Center in Phoenix, where they are rallying support for the Ukrainian community in Arizona.
On their Facebook page, the American Cultural Center is asking for donations for things like helmets, bulletproof vests, and non-perishable food items. But the one thing they say they need most is support from the community. Hundreds of voices joined together. This kind of support is comfort for Ukrainians here in the Valley. Alana Zahn is a foreign exchange student studying at ASU. Her family is in Ukraine.
I have 2 parents there, 2 younger sisters, as well as my grandparents and my other relatives.
For her, it's hard to be across the world from them.
It's really, really scary for them. It's really hard for me to focus on my classes or on any other part of my life right now.
Zahn's family fled Ukraine's capital Kyiv this weekend as Russia began closing in on the city. Her family originally comes from Luhansk, a Russian separatist region occupied since 2014.
I used to live in Luhansk, that's where I was born, and my city was already occupied in 2014, so we had to move to Kyiv.
Zahn is worried about her family, but says she has support around her.
I'm really glad that there's so much support here at ASU in Arizona and in the States in general, and I'm super glad that my friends are here to support me.
It seems like the least I can do is to spread awareness.
Alexandra KOMICHAK is a real estate agent and yoga instructor whose family is from Ukraine.
My heritage roots still run very deep.
KOMICHAK has friends and family halfway across the world, and scenes like this are hard to watch.
The easiest way to explain it is that it's heart-wrenching.
Not only for her, but for some of the youngest members of the Ukrainian community here.
I'm really nervous for them. I want them to be okay, and I just want to stop the war in Ukraine, and I want to support Ukraine.
Both Mirkina and her friend Catherine Wolfson have a message for leaders. Stop the war.
Прекратите войну!
The main feeling amongst supporters was defiance and hope. Alexandra KOMICHAK, whom you heard from earlier, says Ukrainians appear tough on the outside, but are some of the kindest people in the world. Outside the Ukrainian American Cultural Center in Phoenix, Mitchell Zimmerman, Cronkite News.
President Joe Biden gave his State of the Union address last night against a backdrop of war abroad and economic challenges at home. And Arizona lawmakers gave it mixed reviews, as Cronkite News reporter Alexia Stanbridge reports from our Washington bureau.
When President Joe Biden delivered his first State of the Union address last night, he called for national unity, and representatives from Arizona agreed to disagree.
This is our moment to meet and overcome the challenges of our time, and we will, as one people, one America, the United States of America.
It was part of a sweeping package of proposals that Biden called his, quote, unity agenda for the nation, a call that resonated with Arizona Representative Tom O'Halloran.
We are far better off united than we are divided.
But what sounded like a unifying message to O'Halloran, a Democrat, sounded like, quote, a fiction novel to Arizona Representative David Schweikert, a Republican who said in a statement, quote, regardless of what President Biden said this evening, it doesn't change the fact that we are a country in crisis. While they disagreed on much of his speech, Democrats and Republicans both stood and applauded when Biden praised the Ukrainian people who are defending their country from a Russian invasion.
So let us continue to draw inspiration from the iron will of the Ukrainian people.
With the Ukrainian ambassador in attendance, Biden spent the first 10 minutes of his hour-long speech talking about Ukraine.
I think it started out with the right tone as far as America coming to the support of a fellow democracy and the Ukraine people.
But that was just part of an address that also called for gun control, abortion rights, voting rights, and more Democratic priorities. Priorities that did not sit well with Republicans like Arizona Representative Debbie Lesko. She said in a statement, quote, it is time for him to abandon his far-left agenda and work with Republicans for the sake of our nation and our allies around the world. O'Halloran said he wished the president had spoken more about rural issues, but overall he had little but praise for the president's proposals, even though he knows not everyone may agree with them.
And people are going to have different opinions. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
The president, vice president, and members of Biden's cabinet hit the road today, traveling to different cities to start pushing the president's agenda. In Washington, Alexia Stambridge, Cronkite News.
This week, there are currently 50 children in the care of the state who need special foster care homes. But those homes aren't available due to a shortage of foster care parents who are licensed for what is called therapeutic foster care. Cronkite News reporter Faith Abercrombie discovered many of those children have some of the highest needs in care.
Have a hug. Winky.
Family isn't always defined by blood.
I look back in the seat at this baby who was then 6, who I just knew in my heart needed me.
I love those colors.
For Tanja Oliver, the words, I choose you, gave her a son.
I'm gonna take this out for you. It was a mutual agreement, and so February 10th, we adopted each other.
Oliver was initially Jayceon's therapeutic foster care parent, a tier of foster care that requires specialized training.
This is a very hard topic to talk about
for children with significant emotional, behavioral, or medical needs.
They're not going to trust you.
The differences in therapeutic foster care and a regular or original foster care is the amount of support that you receive. A lot of times when the children are in regular foster care, you don't know much about their background.
Jayceon and Oliver just hit 1 year of officially becoming a forever family.
Got it.
They enjoy moodling or doodling out your mood and end most days with daily affirmations.
I am generous. Children who are in therapeutic are at the verge emerging or either processing the trauma that they have experienced.
We really want to be careful on how we say things.
In addition to extra coursework up front, therapeutic foster parents need to do ongoing training, and many parents fear behavioral challenges.
We don't turn our own children away because they have big behaviors. We deal with it and we work through it.
The Department of Child Safety is projecting there will be about 300 to 400 children in need of therapeutic foster care in 2022. Right now, there's only about 170 homes licensed for this level of care.
The only way to fix that is to bring more families into the system to meet the needs of these children.
Oliver continues to open up her home to therapeutic foster care children and adopted another son exactly 1 year after Jayceon.
I love being a mom. I think I was meant to be a mom.
She knows not everyone is able to adopt. However, Oliver and foster care agencies encourage anyone thinking about getting their license to make the extra step and get the therapeutic qualification.
We can't throw our children away. We can't throw our future away.
In Phoenix, Faith Abercrombie, Cronkite News.
With the growth of genealogy companies, people are looking for more and more ways to research their family histories. Well, there's one place in Phoenix where you're able to go back 130 years to find ancestors. Samantha Chow introduces us to the people that are ensuring this place exists for future generations.
sometimes I wonder, what is the point? You know, if nobody's coming to visit, why are we maintaining cemeteries that no longer seem to have a function? Cemeteries aren't for the dead, they're for the living. And usually after a couple generations, the family stops visiting. So that's when deterioration and problems start to happen. But there's such an interest in genealogy today. You know, you can't just go on Ancestry.com and find everything. There's a lot of things there, but you need to come to the cemetery to get the details. These may be the only record that they were ever on this planet.
The Pioneer Cemetery Association is a keeper of historic cemeteries. They do research. They also help out with this cemetery, which is the Pioneer and Military Memorial Park. And we just try to watch over.
Today I'm cleaning a grave site. It's of a little 5-year-old girl. Her name was Amy. And the monument to her, it's not just a headstone, it looks like a little cradle around her grave.
We know how to look at it and know that it was never put together. It was just kind of sat there. This one we're taking all apart, cleaning, then we'll use a setting compound and set it together.
1 degree off, I can look at that.
So it'll stay in one piece.
They brought me in to work on some of the more complicated problems.
Yeah, we need to get some boards in.
Sometimes it's like a jigsaw puzzle without the box.
I think I can deal with that.
You're working with pieces that sometimes are just small fragments. We're repairing them with an epoxy, and then whether it's a crack or just a huge chunk of the stone missing will all be replicated with a lime-based patching material. We'll do our best to make the patches not so obvious. We're not making them look new, we're just trying to preserve everything we have and make them stable.
So when you see something bagged, that means it's been worked on.
At some point, somebody's going to come in here looking for this information, and it'll be there for them if we preserve.
That's it for this special edition of Cronkite News Tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Break It Down is brought to you in part by Mayo Clinic and viewers like you.
Hi, Carrzi. Thank you for being here. Today, we're going to break it down on the harassment that women face in the online gaming world. Now, I just want to set the stage here. Carrzi, I know you've been a gamer for a while. Can you tell us a little bit about when you first started and what your favorite games are?
So I've been gaming since, I was 4 or 5 years old, but what I actually do now as a content creator and streaming online, I've been doing that for about 3.5 years. And I got started on a very little known platform that was called Beam, and it was eventually picked up by Microsoft, renamed, and now I'm actually on a different platform called Twitch. And basically what I do there is I interact with people from all over the world. We play games together, we chat, we do various different things. I do music, karaoke. I'm going to be starting live music soon. And it's just a really great way to be able to meet people and interact and create a safe space for people to basically hang out in. As far as games go, I will say that the one game that I am pretty obsessed with right now is called Apex Legends. It's a first-person shooter battle royale, basically last person standing. You drop into a map, you loot, you destroy, and the person or team that is last standing is the winner. And it's just the game that I feel that I enjoy the most. I love the different people that I get to meet because of that game. I love playing with my friends.
Yes! Woo! And when you're playing these games, I kind of want to understand better, are people watching you? I understand that people comment on these games. Can you tell me a little bit more about sort of the community and how that comes together?
Absolutely, and that's the key word right there is community. And so when I go live, I have my camera. There's a little camera box in the corner. They can see my game in the background, and there's also a chat box on the side. And so these people, they tune in, they click, on the button on my channel. They say, "Hey, how's it going, Carrzi? How are you?" We literally have a conversation just like you and I are having right now. Everything from telling me about their day, their work, their family, different things that they're going through. I can invite these people to play games with me as well, which is really cool. That's how I've gotten to meet a lot of people. And some people who aren't playing, they're literally just sitting there watching me play. And we're chatting and we're listening to music and they're cheering me on or telling me how awful I was. So.
And when they're telling you, I kind of want to hone in on that. When they're giving you feedback, when you're having conversations, I've heard that a lot of the conversations are positive, but some of them necessarily aren't that way. Can you tell me a little bit about, the harassment that you've received and what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a big issue in the gaming industry. Sexual harassment or harassment in general is something that touches everything. So when I'm streaming and I'm playing a game, we'll get random people that hop in and their comments, their things that they write in chat are not necessarily positive. A lot of them are really gross, derogatory remarks. A lot of men, and they are mostly men, I will say that do interact in a negative way, are very aggressive towards women in the gaming space. According to Newzoo, in a recent thing that they published, women make up 46% of gaming enthusiasts around the world. And so we have to hold space with these people.
How do you respond to the cyberbullying?
Well, there's so many different things. I mean, me personally, unfortunately, it happens so often that it's almost just like, okay, brush it off. There have been, instances where there have been death threats and threats of rape, really serious things that are terrifying. There was an instance in my stream where somebody came in and actually made a death threat, and it was terrifying. And I have a group of moderators. They're kind of like my staff, my friends, and they moderate the chat. If people come in and use discussing words or racial slurs or anything like that, they try to delete it right away, remove it as content, and basically are there to protect me and allow me to do what I do, which is interact and play. But you can't help but when you turn off the camera, you take that with you. You do. And I think for me, it has definitely changed the way I interact online. I'm much more careful with who I open my community up to.
What is being done to stop this harassment?
Unfortunately, there's not enough that is being done. I'll give you an example of something that happened last summer. I'm sure you're familiar with the #MeToo movement, which has been a very powerful movement and empowered women and victims to come forward and to share their stories of harassment. And there was like a wave that hit the gaming industry last summer. And there were hundreds of women that came forward and told their stories of sexual harassment, who named their accusers, who named the companies that they worked for. Many of these men were in very powerful positions, influential positions that use that influence to coerce and to ask for photos and sent theirs out, that stalked and harassed, many of these women. And these stories were being heard. I will say this, it was great to see that many of those companies stood by the victims. One of them was me. I had a story to share. I had, 2 instances that specifically happened to me while I was at a gaming convention. And I felt empowered because so many spoke up too, because honestly, I thought I'm just going to carry this instance, this experience, this assault, with me, because what can I gain? Who's going to believe me? There are companies out there that basically stood by us, and there are many people that lost their job. There's people who were forced resignation. There were some that were arrested, those who decided to file actual charges with the police. There were investigations that were being done. Now, this wave hit, and then it just quickly disappeared. And that's the issue. It comes and goes in waves. And that's it. It's almost like these companies just want it to, be swept under the rug. Let's hush this whole thing. Let's move on to the next thing. So not enough, to answer your question, not enough is being done. We really need these companies to make a stand and to continue standing with us. We need these victims to be believed. Twitch is the streaming platform that I currently stream on now. And they came out with strong language. We support, we stand by our women. But there was only a few of the attackers that were removed from the site. There were a few of the men who lost sponsorships, who lost their jobs, but what about the many more that were out there? What's happening? What's currently happening for them? There are still women victims out there that have to share space on the same platform as their attackers. This isn't right. So for me, it's just continuing to bring this up, continuing to not let this whole issue die.
Carrzi, thank you so much for your bravery and for shining a light on the harassment that women face in the online gaming world.
Yeah, absolutely. It was my pleasure to speak with you today about it. Thank you for having me.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you. If you have comments about Arizona PBS News, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Thank you.